Hello everyone and welcome to 5-Minute German. In today's video, we will learn the concept of regular verbs in German, how they are formed and how to recognize them. By learning this concept, you will be able to identify regular verbs which are used in different contexts, and you will also be able to conjugate the verbs without having to memorize them. So let's not waste any time and let's get started. We will start by understanding what are regular verbs or Regelmäßige Verben in German. After that, we will take a look at how to find the verb stem. This is an important concept in understanding how the conjugations for regular verbs are formed. Then we will take a look at the conjugations of regular verbs in present tense. After that, I will tell you the conjugation rules for regular verbs. Then in the helpful tips section, I will tell you about a website where you can find the verb types. And at the end of the video, I will give you a self-check form which you can use to practice what you learn in this video. I will explain this concept in the most simplest terms because my goal is to support you in learning German and making it easy for you to understand. So, what are regular verbs or Regelmäßige Verben as they are called in German? So, regular verbs are also called weak verbs or schwache Verben in German. These are verbs in which the verb stem remains same when conjugated. For those of you who don't know, conjugation means the change in verb form due to the pronoun or tense. I have explained this concept of conjugation in another video which I will link in the description below. Now you might be asking, what is a verb stem? So let me tell you how you can find the verb stem. So in order to find the verb stem, you need to have the verb in infinitive form. This is the form which you find in the dictionary. Then you have to remove the ending en or n from the infinitive form. And after that, you will have the verb stem. Let's understand this with some examples. So I have three verbs over here. Machen, which means to do, hören, which means to hear, and klingeln, which means to ring, for example, ringing a bell. So in order to find the verb stem, we have to remove the ending en or n from these verbs, which are in the infinitive form. So let's start with machen. So when we remove the ending en from machen, then we get mach. This mach is the verb stem. In case of hören, we will again remove the ending en and we will have hör, which is the verb stem. In case of klingeln, we don't have en as the ending, rather we only have n. So when we remove n, then we are left with klingel, and klingel is the verb stem for klingeln. Keep this concept in mind because we are going to use the verb stem as we go along in this video. So now let's see how we can conjugate the regular verbs in present tense or Präsens as it is called in German. So over here I have written all the different cases of personal pronouns in nominative, and we are going to use the verb wohnen, which means to live. Wohnen is the infinitive form. Now let's first find the verb stem of wohnen. So I can break this verb into two parts as wohn and en. So wohn over here is the verb stem and en is the ending. Now let's conjugate the verb wohnen. So the conjugation for wohnen will be ich wohne, du wohnst, es sie wohnt, wir wohnen, ihr wohnt, sie wohnen, and the formal way sie wohnen. Now in the start we learned that in case of regular verb, the verb stem remains the same when the verb is conjugated. This means that any conjugation that we do of wohnen, the verb stem wohn will be present. Now when I split these conjugations into the verb stem and the ending, then you will see that in all of these conjugations, the verb stem wohn remains as it is. Let's take another example of the verb brauchen, which means to need. Now again, using the rule which we learned earlier, we can split the verb brauchen into brauch and en, where brauch is the verb stem and en is the ending in infinitive form. And the conjugation for brauchen in the different cases will be ich brauche, du brauchst, es sie braucht, wir brauchen, ihr braucht, sie brauchen, and sie brauchen. When I split this, then you see over here again that brauch, which is the verb stem, is present in all of these conjugations. Now when we compare the conjugations of wohnen and brauchen, then there is one more interesting thing which you might have noticed. For both the verbs, the ending for the first person singular is the same, which is e. In second person singular, or in case of du, it is also the same, which is st. For third person singular, it is t. For first person plural or wir, it is en. For second person plural, it is again t. And for the third person plural and the formal way, it is en. So this means that whenever we conjugate a regular verb, then the ending of these verbs will remain the same for the different cases. And if we know these endings, then we don't have to memorize the conjugations of all the regular verbs, and we can simply use these endings to conjugate them. Another thing that is interesting over here is that the first person plural, which is wir, the third person plural, and the formal way forms are the same as the infinitive form. So we will use the same ending as the infinitive form, which is en in this case. Now in the graphic that we saw at the start, we learned that there is another possibility, and that is that the ending is n and not en. So let's take this example. So for this I have the verb wandern over here, which means to hike or to walk, and you see that it does not have an en at the end, rather it only has an n. So let's split this verb into the stem and the ending. So it will be wander and n. Wander is the verb stem and n is the ending over here. Now let's conjugate it. We learned that the ending for the first person singular or ish is e. So using this we can conjugate wandern as ish wandere. With do it is st, so it will be do wanderst. With air sz the ending is t, so it will be air sz wandered. With wir and the last two cases, which is z and z, we learned that these are the same as the infinitive form, so it will be wandern with an n at the end and not an en, because we don't have an en in the infinitive form of wandern. So this means that the ending of wir can be en or n depending on the infinitive form. Now moving forward, with ear it will be t, so ear wandered, and for the third person plural and the formal way, these will be the same as the infinitive form, so it will be z wandern and z wandern. So you see that these endings can be used to conjugate the regular verbs, which makes it easier as you will not have to memorize all of them. However, since this is a language, so there are always exceptions, and in case of regular verbs we have three exceptions. The first is when the verb stem ends with the letters d or t. The second is when the verb stem ends with the letters s, set, x or set. And the third is when the infinitive verb ends with the ending eln or aln in German. Now let's first of all take a look at the case where the verb stem ends with the letters d or t. So I have an example verb over here, which is reden, which means to talk, and we learned that the ending with the first person singular will be e. So when we conjugate the verb reden, it will become ish rede. For second person singular or do, it will be st. However, when the verb stem ends with d or t, as is the case over here, then we will not use st, rather we will use the ending est. So the verb will become do redest. This is done because it is difficult to pronounce the verb if we use the ending st. It would be redst, and in order to make it easier, we add an extra e over here so that it becomes redest. In case of sc, the original ending was t. However, it is again very difficult to pronounce the verb with the ending t. That's why we don't use the ending t and we add an e before the t. So this becomes sc redet. In case of wir, the ending will remain the same. So in this case, it will be en, as we also have en in the infinitive form, so it will be wir reden. In case of ear, we again have the ending t, so it will be converted to et, and we will say ear redet. In case of third person plural, it will be the same as the infinitive form, so z reden, and the formal way will also be the same, which is z reden. So the rule over here is that when the verb stem ends with the letters d or t, then we add an e before the endings st and t. Let's take another example of the verb arbeiten, which means to work. So in the first person singular, it will be ich arbeite with the ending e or a, as it is pronounced in German. With do, it will be arbeitest with the ending ast or est. With sc, it will be arbeitet with the ending et or et. With wir, it will be the same as the infinitive form, so it will be wir arbeiten. With ear, it will be ear arbeitet with the ending et at the end. And with z, it will be arbeiten, and in the formal way, it will be again z arbeiten. So this is the change that you have to do when the verb stem ends with the letters d or t. You can take a screenshot of this part over here so that you can take a look at it later on as well. Now, the second exception is when the verb stem ends with the letters s, set, x or set. Let's take a look at what happens in this case. So we have the verb grüßen over here, which means to greet. You also see the endings for regular verbs over here. So now following these endings, the conjugation for grüßen in first person singular will be ich grüße, where grüßt is the stem and a or e is the ending over here. In case of second person singular, the ending should be st. However, we will not use this ending. Rather, we will remove the s and only use t as the ending. So this will become du grüßt. The reason for removing the s over here is that the letter sz also gives the same sound as an s. So if we use the ending st over here, then there will be a duplication of the letter s. The same is the case for all the other letters that you see at the top. So s, x and set also give the sound of an s. That is why we don't use the s to avoid duplication. In all the other cases, the endings will remain the same. So for sz, it will be sz grüßt with the ending te. With wir, it will be wir grüßen, the same as the infinitive form. With ihr, it will be ihr grüßt with the ending te. With sie, it will be sie grüßen, and the formal sie will also be sie grüßen. So the rule over here is to remove the s from st in second person singular. Let's take an example with another verb, which is tanzen, which means to dance. So the conjugation will be ich tanze, du tanzt, so only the t over here and not st. Then sz tanzt. With wir, it will be wir tanzen. With ihr, it will be ihr tanzt. With sie, it will be sie tanzen, the same as the infinitive, and the formal sie will be sie tanzen. So this is the change that will happen when the verb stem ends with the letters s, sz, x or set. Because all these letters have the sound of s when they are pronounced, so that's why we want to avoid duplication, and therefore the s is removed in second person singular. Now the last exception is when the infinitive verb ends with the letters eln. So in this case, we have the verb radeln, which means to cycle. So the conjugation for radeln with ich will be ich radele with the ending e. However, in this case, we will remove the e before the l, and the conjugation will be ich radle and not ich radele. So the rule when the infinitive verb ends with the ending eln is that we have to remove the e before l in first person singular verb, as we see over here. The rest of the cases will remain the same. So it will be du radelst with the ending st. With ast, it will be ast radelt. Then wir radeln, ihr radelt, sie radeln, and sie radeln. Now with these rules, you can easily conjugate regular verbs. However, you might be saying that yes, I can now conjugate regular verbs, but how will I know if a verb is regular or not? Do I have to memorize all of these verbs? Because you can only conjugate it once you have identified if a verb is regular or not. So I have some good news for you, and that is that you don't have to memorize all the regular verbs, because I will give you a website where you can find the verb types and you can know whether a verb is regular or not. So let me show you this website. So the website is called verbformen.com. So this is how it looks like, and over here you can give any verb that you want to check. So let's take the verb wohnen, which we also saw earlier. So when you press enter, then you see over here that it gives you some information about the verb wohnen, and over here you see that it is a regular verb. You have some other information over here as well. For example, the meaning of the verb in English. You also have the conjugations in different tenses over here as well, and also some information about this verb at the top. Let's take another verb, for example tanzen. So in the result, you see again that this is a regular verb. Let's take an example of a verb which is not regular. So I will write heißen, which means to be called, as ich heiße. So in this case, you see that it is an irregular verb. We will learn irregular verbs in another video, but this was just to give you an idea of how you can find whether a verb is regular or not. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. From now on, every video will include a self-check quiz. You can find the link in the description below. Quiz yourself and see how much you have understood the concept. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much and have a great day.